Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bento channel. It's the KyoAni Podcast, the podcast in which we only talk about KyoAni. The subject for today's podcast is 2016 film A Silent Voice, which has since, I don't want to say it's been a classic, but it's fairly popular these days. So I'm going to be the moderator for today's podcast. I'm not really going to interact much in the discussion because I have plenty of videos on A Silent Voice on my main channel, which you can go watch. So with that being said, we got a lot of guest co-hosts here today. I'm going to start with the first appearance ever of this person, Odyssey.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. That all?
I mean, what's up, man? That's all. You go on.
Hi, Odyssey.
Hello.
Next up, we have a guy I've been watching for a while. Hopefully, we're friends by now, and that is the amazing Drac. Drac is.
It's a wonderful time to be able to be on the podcast.
This is going great.
Are we sure this is Drac?
Yes, it is, but for some reason there's a rumor going around, a very stingy rumor that this is my actual voice.
Oh, damn.
Spoiler alert, everybody. This is my voice.
Can Drac use a different voice every time he talks tonight?
I mean, I'm sure
I don't know.
Oh my god. And I mean, you know him for the First Basket podcast. We have Rising Sun Reviews.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a confession. I got mixed up and just watched all of Kill la Kill last night instead of Silent Voice, so if I say weird things, that's why.
Oh, jeez. And then
But
finally...
thank you for having me, and it's fun to be here with all these friends.
So what you're basically saying is that when we hear you eventually say, and that's when the thong decided to eat everybody, and we're gonna be like, what part of that was in the movie?
Episode 2 of Kill la Kill.
Don't spoil.
So, and finally, we have a person who I've been trying to do billions of podcasts with. We've had plenty of ideas, but he's finally here. Shadow.
Yeah, it's me. About damn time we got something together, Ben.
Exactly. It's amazing. It's amazing. It only took about a year.
Took a year and about 5 million pitches.
Yeah,
but we did it.
No.
There's many different ideas
But
out
it was
there.
that 5
we have.
million and first that
Yeah.
got it?
It was that one. That was the one. That was the best one. All the other ones are basically just, I don't know, give me money.
I was gonna say that's a fairly moderate number. That you guys should be proud of yourselves.
Yeah.
It shows how KyoAni brings people together.
Yes, and
Exactly.
speaking of
Yeah.
KyoAni, what is your experience with KyoAni and or just anime in general?
Okay, for me, I've been watching anime for a little bit now. KyoAni. I think, this was my first KyoAni that I've watched, I believe.
Wow.
Wait, yeah, this was it. So yeah, I've seen, I wouldn't say most, but I've seen a good amount of their shows, and I'll keep watching shows.
What about you, Drac?
Well, my experience with Kyoto Animation, I have no idea, in all honesty. I probably have seen something from them, but I just don't know that it's them.
You've seen K-On, so you've seen them.
Oh, well, then I have you to thank for my pain and suffering. As far as my experience with anime, I am a child of the 80s, and therefore I watched Transformers, Voltron, a number of other shows, and because nobody understood what anime was at the time, I also got to see shows that no child should ever be able to see from their blockbuster simply because they were right next to the Disney movie that you kind of didn't want to rent for the 30th time. So that's kind of my experience. Ever since then, I've kind of poked my head here and there into the 90s, into the 2000s. And occasionally I find something that I really like, and sometimes I then go, why can't I find anything that I like?
Yeah, that is I feel that a lot. Rising?
Well, I did a little bit of research before this podcast. I checked my Mal, and I've completed 379 shows according to Mal. So I've seen a couple anime.
I'm gonna
Only a
beat
couple,
you.
huh?
Only
Yes.
a couple.
You should see my plan to watch list.
Oh, I'm sure. But for my KyoAni, I've seen most of their shows. I think I've at least tried everything that they have come out with since I started following seasonal anime. They're very hit or miss with me, though. A lot of times I start something else, realize, oh, I actually don't like this, I'm going to drop it. But most of the time when I actually give it a try and watch all of it, I do come around to liking them. So that's actually kind of how I feel about this one, though I'm sure we'll get more into that in a bit.
Jeez, I feel like the odd guy out in this podcast because you guys know who Kyoto Animation was, and unfortunately, I did not know the name of the company or anything like that until, unfortunately, the fire. So now I'm just the guy who feels like he's 3 inches tall.
Well, don't worry. It just means you're not a weeb and you stand above us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have been
Exactly.
tested. I can confirm I'm not a weeb. I'm many things. I'm just not a weeb.
Okay, we
Are
can
you a
fix some
plebe?
stuff.
Shadow.
I have failed. Yes.
About you?
In terms of overall anime, I've seen probably in the neighborhood of over 300. That's give or take some one-shots that I probably never recorded. And I've completed 241 of those. As for KyoAni, I've been following a lot of their stuff for a very long time. I think the first show I saw was Air. At least that's the first one I saw all the way through. It could have been Full Metal Panic Famufu first, but Air is definitely the first one by them that I finished. And it just kind of cascaded from there. Came Haruhi Suzumiya and came more shows up until most recently with some of their more recent stuff like Violet Evergarden.
And that's a show that we'll be covering
Wait,
next week.
Haruhi's theirs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw that. So okay,
Wait.
Did they have a show come out last year?
Probably.
I think that would be Evergarden, wouldn't it?
No, that was 2 years ago.
2017.
So this goes for all of you. Just jump in. This movie is quite well known, and before getting to the end of this, I'm sure pretty much every one of you know how beloved this film is, not just to a anime audience, but to a worldwide and casual audience, as Jim Sterling would say. What do you guys think about that? What did you think about how popular this anime was? Did that affect your interest going into it?
Well, for me, it was actually kind of interesting because I watched this at a time like when I first started anime. So I think it was either this, I think my first actual anime was probably Akira. Then it was like No, and then I think I started getting into this because I knew Silent Voice and Your Name were like the two heading buds of films of that year of anime. And I watched Your Name first, and then I watched The Silent Voice. I ended up liking The Silent Voice a lot more, even though Your Name is a great film. So yeah, that's how I got, because I kept hearing about it a lot. Just kind of debating which movie they like better, or just how popular they are and how good they are, and why you should watch it.
And
That
that
was
is
my-
one of the debates of the centuries. They came out the same year. They've been compared to death.
Yeah.
That's how I got into this film.
This is again sound kind of insensitive. I try to follow as much stuff as I possibly can, but since I am involved in so many fandoms, I occasionally things fall through the cracks. I think the first time I'd heard about this film, so I don't know its popularity. I wouldn't be surprised that it was. I think it was, and Shadow's gonna have to correct me on this, but wasn't it one of our end of year like top movies of that year that you brought it up?
Because it was on multiple lists of mine from my year-end list, from my own personal channel, for the Geek News channel. I don't remember. Were we still doing our Dragon Shadow movie vlogs at that point?
I think we were. I
Yeah.
want to say it was either the year before or the last year that we did it. And I mean, it's not like we gave it up because we hated it, but yeah, I want to say it was one of those years that you brought up A Silent Voice, and that's all I knew at that point. I knew its name. I knew very little of its story or anything like that because Alex kind of summarized the plot in his description. So I literally did not know anything about a silent voice until literally yesterday when you guys asked me to come and do this podcast, and I basically crashed the movie and watched through it.
Oh, I ended up just watching it earlier today and finished it right before we did this, so I did it sooner or more recently than you.
Damn it, man!
Wow.
Don't
was
look
also rewatched
busier
for-
than me.
It was also
favorite-
rewatch for me, so.
It's my favorite
Oh.
Pitbull song. Damn it, man.
It's a Pitbull song?
It is. It is.
I've never
Okay.
even listened to him.
Mr.
Okay, I need to
Worldwide.
drop call so I can go look that up.
Oh God.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess for me, I first got into it in the manga before even the movie came out. So, just as a little aside, but diving right into this film, because this film just jumps into it with my generation. What did you guys think about a Japanese film? Not just a Japanese film made in Kyoto, Japan, having My Generation by The Who.
It didn't surprise me too much because I was following this movie for quite a while. I was following it in the news to follow its development because the plot really had me intrigued. So I was really looking forward to when it would come out. Plus, I liked KyoAni, which was the director's previous work. And knowing that KyoAni was a lot of it was essentially like a high school girl version of The Who, it wasn't that big surprise like, oh, that's kind of a nice callback to KyoAni because it's a Who song. And that's what KyoAni was, basically. The group was like The Who, more or less.
It was actually kind of interesting for me. I wasn't actually surprised as well, because before I got into anime, I was always into films, still am. But I was always used to films having music in them. So when I saw this film and it had it, I wasn't really surprised, even though you don't see usually like American music in anime. It wasn't really too much of a surprise for me, but I thought it was a great opening, really good, really well made opening just to start the film.
It was presented in montage format, which I thought was pretty cool. It covered a lot of ground of the story, which I thought was a nice way to still get the viewer that stuff they needed, while at the same time doing it in an entertaining way and a pretty cool way by listening to a classic rock song.
It seemed very weird. Like, it made it feel like it was an American movie because that's this type of song that they would lead off with.
Mhm.
Kind of expound on the concept of like being able to bring you up to speed on the story that you're watching. I've always kind of had the feeling that anime tends to do it a little bit better than a lot of modern Hollywood productions. And so that's one of the things I actually really like about anime, especially like anime openings, because they find a way to be able to properly, and believe it or not, you can properly do it, condense all of the facts of the story that you need to know up until that point, just to get you at least somewhat caught up.
Yeah, I wonder if I would have like been able to pick up on all the things if I had not already like knew what was going on, because it kind of felt like disjointed or like it would not make sense unless you have the context. Though it could also be good to like come back later on and then see like, oh, okay, this is what they're showing.
Yeah, if you came back into like the day that Shoko showed up, you wouldn't know like the connection that a lot of the kids there have. And so at that point you wouldn't be invested in this, because I mean their relationship is a theme of this movie, and you wouldn't be invested in it as much as if you hadn't seen that through the opening.
And a lot of this anime has to deal with your past while you're living in the present and looking towards the future. So what did you guys think about Shoya Ashida?
I mean, can I be like brutally honest?
Yeah.
He was an asshat like every other kid that in the show was.
I mean, I agree. He was a bully.
Yeah, that's where he starts.
I don't even want to go that road. Because here's the thing, like, you know, he's a kid. He doesn't know any better. Once something, basically, when you throw a left hook or a monkey wrench into his usual way of life, of course he's going to resent it. Of course he's going to have issues with it and therefore want to mock it. But I mean, that's kind of the issue here, is that's school in a nutshell. You do that, and unfortunately, playground politics do exist. And so they're going to act their way. That's why I don't know if I want to go down the angle of bully, because it's just all the kids are being asshats. They don't know any better.
That's true.
Yeah, say that.
I liked his character in the end, but like the whole show is very hard for me to get into because I had no characters I could like for like half an hour into it. Like you have Shoya basically being a bully, Shoko, who it felt like her only purpose was to be an innocent girl who's being bullied, and then all the other characters are jerks. So it's like there's nothing for me to connect to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were analyzing like from kid and then go into adult. My apologies. Overall, I tend to like Shoya, and it's just because I do think he has a great redemption arc to follow and one that is very relatable. Sorry about that, Rising.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's like it took him a long time for me to be able to get into his character, but then I was saying like, yes, he did all these bad things, but like he's a person. We all do bad things. So it's like how he is trying and failing, but still trying to like improve himself.
What I found funny is that he literally, in a weird way, and this is actually how he kind of relates to Shoko and what gets him to rekindle, for lack of a better term, rekindle that relationship, is the fact that he becomes about as socially awkward as her being deaf basically requires her to be. I don't know if they actually ever said what it was that he had, but he basically developed a social awkwardness to the point where he couldn't look anybody in the eye. And I thought that was actually a really ironic way to be able to bring him into Shoko's shoes. And I also liked a lot of the scenes where he'd be in the middle of a crowd and he'd just cover his ears, almost trying to be Shoko.
Oh yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but yeah, it's like it's doing the same thing for him, and that's why they're able to, like in the end, they're able to connect to each other.
Especially with the X's, or smart little subtle thing that they added, and especially when it goes away when he starts to connect with somebody, that was really neat.
Mhm.
Yeah, I actually like that when you would have the X's just slowly kind of peel away. And at that point, then you had a full look at their face. But everybody except Shoko had that, which I thought was a nice touch, because that was the one that stuck out to him the most.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting artistic choice to like portray it that way. It kind of felt like overly obvious what they were doing with it, but it still definitely worked and had the effect they were going for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of parallels in A Silent Voice. You can, especially with Shoko and Shoya and the two mothers, I mean, there's always something that, somebody can relate to and have these, compare and contrasting elements. And I think Shoya in particular, I think there's a lot to his character that, visually speaking, I like how he's got really bad posture. I like how his tag's always sticking out in the back of his shirt, suggesting that he just doesn't really care about his appearance at all. And that's not something that started just because he was ostracized and bullied and developed this social anxiety. He's always been like that. So it's quite fascinating, just from the visual perspective, looking at Shoya and picking up on a lot of these small things.
And I actually remember you mentioning that in your video about it, I think it was. So I was like picking up on it this time, like his shirt is like half tucked in. But then like one of the final scenes when he was getting ready, he was like making sure his tie was good. So it's like that shows how he's valuing himself and how he presents himself more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also the fact that he just like gets rid of a ton of his stuff because he's trying to he tries to kill himself. Gets rid of everything, saves up all his money. I thought that was very interesting because I've never seen that being done before. If like when they're usually in like something else when they're planning like a suicide, you never see that aspect of it. To the family aspect, like his mother's reaction to it. You never usually
his
see
mom's
that.
reaction is amazing.
Yeah, I loved his mother's reaction.
Yeah.
You never see that.
His mother is just a really interesting character too. Like she wasn't that prominent, but you could tell like, she was there, and like every scene she was in was great.
Well, every scene that she was in just had straight up power. Because especially like the interactions between her and Shoko's mom. I especially like the scene that they kind of refer back with Shoya as like a traumatic memory, where he looks at his mom and you can see like this what looks like a dirt stain on the sweater, but then they eventually later in the movie show that her ears were bleeding. And I thought that was an interesting thing to show. It's almost like Shoko's mom basically tried to do to her what Shoya had been doing to Shoko the entire time.
Okay, yeah, I did not pick up on that one.
I also found, I don't know if you guys noticed this, it's also at the beginning of the film. You actually see Shoko in the shop, his mom's barber shop. You see her there. She's waiting there to get a haircut, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I totally missed that my first time. I caught it on the second watch through, but yeah, I totally missed that. Which
Yeah, I noticed it this time too.
He just walks right past her. I thought that was a nice little touch.
Wait, are we talking at the beginning of the movie? I know that she shows up later, but
Yeah, it was
at the beginning. It's like you could miss it. Like if you blink and you miss it.
yeah, I missed it. I'll be honest.
I was only on the scene. It was only on there for like a second. So.
yeah, it is a real blink and miss it. And
I wonder if they made that be an intentional parallel to when he got there, like Shoko's mom was sitting in there getting her hair done.
Maybe.
I mean, at the beginning of the film, she's getting her hair done, and at the end of the film, she's getting her hair done. And they're all friends again.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows like how they had the desire to like have things back to the way they were. In a way they were able to do that. A lot of pain, and now it's even better because they have Shoko's like part of their friend group now.
Yeah, and speaking of Shoko is a really fascinating character, and she's not the show's really, or the movie's really about Shoya's kind of redemption. But as well, we have in tandem this girl that Shoya bullied, Shoko, and she's deaf. She has a lot of issues with family, and like her mother's really strict. Her sister ran away at one point, and there's just a lot of tension there. Her grandmother dies in the film. And as well, she's just living this life where she's just she's always silent. What do you guys think about her?
I really like Shoko. I really kind of get what her place in the film is. It's easy to look at her just like she's a victim there to just be the victim to move the plot along, but I think she is the catalyst that sets the whole story in motion, which makes sense. She's the main character, but it's also that you see when she first encounters Shoya when they're teenagers again. It's like the first time she's seen him in probably many years. She's actually a little afraid of him at first, but after a while, it's like the fear goes away and she begins to develop that fondness for him, and she bonds with him more. That to the point that whatever he did to her as a kid, it doesn't matter anymore because she's in love with him.
Oh, I have a couple things. When they did meet as kids before, like he started bullying her, like she always wanted to be friends with him. I personally think like she always kind of liked him, like it's very subtle. She like always wanted to have a connection with him.
Yeah, I agree. I think when they were little kids, I think the way that she was trying to act around Shoya was one of like trying to get his attention and be friends.
Yeah,
it just he wouldn't have it.
yeah.
And you could tell like she really cared about him as much as she could, and like because of her being deaf and everything else, she just could not express it in a way that he would get.
Yeah.
So, another thing about her character that I find very fascinating. The reason like she's very sad is not just because all the things happen into her in the film, which, like you said, that's a part of it. Another a big part of her character is she really can't. She thinks she's a burden. She can't forgive herself because she just doesn't like herself. I find that very fascinating. And she really
Yeah.
didn't. She really did nothing, and she just does not like herself as a person.
Yeah, she hates the fact that she can't do anything.
Yeah,
Her image of her in her head is something that she doesn't care for, doesn't appreciate at all, or as much as she should.
Which is really interesting when you put that in the same perspective of the way Shoya feels about himself. Shoya also doesn't really care about himself. So you suddenly put these two characters that kind of hate themselves together, and together they find a reason to like each other and like themselves.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really like that point when like Shoko admitted that she hated herself, and Shoya saw that tape and was like, "I get that. I hate myself too."
Mhm.
And it shows how.
Oh, are
both
you talking about the Ferris wheel video?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like that's the scene that made me understand Shoko, because up until that point, it was like she was just there to be the victim of everything and to like be the catalyst for Shoya's growth. But then you saw Shoko, like how she is, how everything that was happening makes sense when you like keep in mind that's the type of person that she is.
Done. Where do we go from here?
The moderator got this,
Yeah.
man.
You laid out the agenda before we started.
Yeah.
Oh, but
I mean, I have thoughts on Shoko, but I kind of want to hold them off until like a general kind of viewpoint, because
all right.
I feel like the unpopular one here, I actually walked away from this film not liking it, but not in the sense of that it's a bad movie and everybody should feel bad about spending their ticket money on it. More that it hit the wrong notes, it hit the wrong buttons for me, and thus created a, lack of a better term, a hateful reaction within me, because of, well, frankly enough, its relatability to me.
So
So I will have thoughts later, but I figure I might as well just kind of put them all together.
right. So I guess one of my favorite scenes in this whole film was the confession scene, because it was both humorous and at the same time it had some seriousness to it, some drama, and I think the balance of those two things, as well, what we've seen up until this point in the film, I think it really made for a sweet scene. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah.
Are we talking about the one where she tried to say I like you, and instead he thought she said like I like the moon?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I got that one. I was kind of having issues understanding what she was saying at that point. I thought that was a really great tone from the actress, is that she blurted it out as she did, so that it was unintelligible. And then at that point, it just helps the impact of the later scene when she goes home, throws herself on her bed, and just act like I blew it, and she basically tells Yuzu what she did. Because I also was kind of in Shoya's shoes. I was like sitting there going, yeah, that was unintelligible enough that I kind of didn't get it either. I mean, body language can tell you that might have been what she meant, but yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because like a logical perspective would be he's saying like, is that what he's saying? And she would say like, no, this is what I really mean. Like try it again until he gets it. But she's like so much on nerves trying to like confess her love that it's like taking all the courage she has to say at once. So
it also makes a lot more sense when you look at it that from that perspective, that she blurted it out and she didn't know if she could say it again. So at that point, her reaction was to run away because she thought it was just a rejection, and it wasn't. It was he couldn't understand.
And for Shoya too, it's like maybe if he thought that's what she could be saying, that's what she would hear. But he is not a character who would think that someone could confess her love to him. So it's like it's not something that he would expect at all.
No, I don't. I think even if she had said it as clear as day, he still would have been like a deer in the headlights. He wouldn't know how to react to it.
Yeah, he would not have believed what he heard if he did actually hear it.
Yeah.
How does
if anything, that would probably make him curl up and stare at the floor, because that would probably set set off a lot of his social awkwardness, and she'd still take it as a rejection.
Yeah. So, like,
Right.
yeah, it definitely was a very interesting scene because it brought the difficulties both characters had together there.
Right. I mean, how does a person who hates himself and has these anxieties and at the same time is inexperienced in terms of love, I mean, how can one react like that? I mean, I think the scene was really done really well in that respect.
It's my favorite scene in the whole film. Reason being is just like a little subtle things. I think the movie is just very subtle in general, and I like how she gets very like spruced up. She changes her hair. She's really excited. She like brings him those little rabbit things on the sticks. She's just so excited, and then kind of goes downhill. But like you said, it's also kind of a comedic scene. In that sense.
I like how we don't figure out until pretty much the end of film what those things are for.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bet people in Japan, like, when they saw that, they're like, "Oh, that's those."
I just thought they were really crummy looking Easter candies, but that was me.
Well, they look like peeps on a stick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kinda.
Yeah, I want some chocolate.
See, I knew I shouldn't have brought up food. That's the plague of a podcast is you bring up food and then everybody gets hungry.
And this is why every time we do the Fierce Basket podcast, I come away from it, you need to eat something that they talked about.
Yeah.
Anybody else got anything to say about this scene?
Particularly the confession. No, I've pretty much said my piece on it.
Great scene. That's all.
So, I mean, I also want to talk a little bit about the two mothers. They to me they were quite underrated in a sense because they reflected a lot of their children's values onto them, and as well they have their own unique parenting styles, and you can see where those parenting styles have influenced their children to act the way they do and behave the way they do, which I always love that kind of thing. What did you guys think?
The parents are great. The two mothers are really excellent in this.
Yeah. I like the little touch again with the subtlety of how her hair is dyed blonde, but it's black at the top. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and it makes
Yeah,
sense for
they're-
her because she's a hairstylist, and
Yeah.
she's probably has this kind of like youthfulness to her where she's like, well, it kind of looks cool if I don't like keep dyeing it.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it like shows the way she presents herself in a way like very laid back in that, or at least to a
Yeah.
degree.
Free spirited, I would say.
Yeah.
carefree almost.
Yeah.
Her and her mother and Shoko's mom is like more refined and strict.
It's
Yeah.
also interesting how with like Shoya's family, there's a lot we don't see, but it's implied. Like him having an older sister who went somewhere, who then married a guy who's in the army, who was deployed for a long time. So there's a lot of like very subtle things. Like they don't tell you a lot about it, but you are able to pick up on it.
Also, like once again, we have more parallels between the two. They're both single. They both
I mean-
have a lot of people living with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are you trying to say, Ben?
I'm just trying to say, just trying to say, I'm single, ladies.
We know you like MILFs. All right. Yeah, we know you like MILFs.
Sorry about that. My wife brought in something that apparently ended up at our doorstep when we were trying to figure that out. As far as the moms for me, here's the thing. Originally, I didn't really have too many thoughts on them, but now you guys have actually kind of made me think because, and probably in a weird way, I have gained a disrespect for Shoko's mom, given that you guys kind of pointed out that she was at Shoya's mom's hair shop. So at that point, I almost get a little bit more frustrated with Shoko's mom simply because I would like to think that she would at least know that, yes, it's hard to see your kid get persecuted. It's hard to see your kid go through tough times. But almost as a parental example, you should know that violence doesn't get you anywhere. And there are a lot of times where I think she carried a little too much hate. And now that scene with the earring actually kind of pisses me off a little bit, because then she should have known, like, ripping the earring out of this supposed friend's ear wasn't going to solve anything.
I mean, I think it kind of fits in that because the mom, Shoya's mom, comes in and stops them.
Yes.
I contrast it a little bit, but I see what you mean, though.
But with that being said, looking at it, I would actually say that Shoya's mom doesn't necessarily go through much of an arc. She kind of stays the way that she's supposed to be, whereas you actually do get to see Shoko's mom go through a bit of an arc. You know, you're talking about a parent who's dealing with a very difficult situation, a child that you know is going to have a lot of hardship in her life and a lot of persecution. And it's understandable that she would become as bitter as she does, but then you actually do get to see her turn around, because the very kid she hated for tormenting her daughter ultimately saves her from committing suicide, and ends up in a coma for it. I almost thought that it would have been an interesting twist if they'd found a way to have Shoya hit his head on something and actually start to slowly become death, so that he could understand like what she was going through, and that's the price that he had to pay to survive the fall.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Like, it affected him mentally, so like would not be able to communicate or fully speak or something.
Yeah, because I don't really feel like there was a point that I feel like there was resolution with the moms. I don't feel like there was resolution between Shoya and her, where she actually acknowledged that Shoya was a changed person, if that makes sense.
There is a reason for that. We'll talk about that later on in the podcast. But
Okay.
well, I mean, you bring it up a little bit, Drac, but the fireworks scene in which Shoko has decided she's going to jump from her balcony and into her own life. This scene is very notable because a lot of people will watch that scene and like almost like every person I've talked to personally who's seen this movie, they always go, "Those fireworks sound so real." There's an interesting story behind that. The microphone they used, they got from, it's like this special microphone from Germany, which was used for recording like big concerts, big bands. And that's why it sounds so good.
I don't remember the name of it, but it's a very sensitive mic to be able to pick up and eloquently, as it does, point out these loud noises that are happening. And I actually kind of took it a different way. I thought it was a really great way for the creators to basically put us in Shoko's perspective, because it almost did sound like it could have come from her hearing aid. And I like the interpretation that they tried to put into that. I didn't even know about that mic, but now that makes a lot more sense.
Yep. And
The big role in the film.
That scene was interesting too, because when I first watched the movie a few years ago, it felt like it sort of came out of nowhere. But now on the rewatch, I know I was coming in able to see like all the things that are building up and understanding why Shoko is feeling the way that she did up to that point.
To go back a little, but it relates back to the fireworks. When Shoko is trying to commit suicide, and Shoya is trying to commit suicide, there's fireworks. Like a little popper thing goes off.
Oh yeah.
It's like foreshadowing a bit.
Yeah,
That's cool. I didn't pick up on that either. And I've seen this movie like 4 times.
Yeah.
Go on.
Another great scene.
I remember that scene where she's getting ready to jump. I was biting my nails the whole time when I first saw it. It was like, oh.
Yeah, a lot of tension.
It was like the moment Shoya entered the apartment and it's very quiet. Like, I started to feel a real sense of dread. Like, I could sense something's going to happen here in a minute. And I'm like, I'm not liking where this is going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did feel it was kind of like sort of like overly convenient that like Shoya was the one who was knocked out instead of Shoko, just like the series of events that happened that let that be the result?
I tend to disagree, but it's only because they really painted it in the way that this is a price for Shoya. For all the crap that he did up until this point, for how he treated Shoko, how he treated other people, especially if you remember, he had that really nasty interaction with most of the cast, where we kind of got to see that horrible personality come back that was back in the elementary school days. And so at that point, it felt like a penance. It felt like a price, especially with him saying, like, please, God, don't let me die. I promise I will look everybody in the eye. That's why I'm saying I'm not saying that it doesn't have weight. I just think it would have had a little bit more weight if all of a sudden he finds out that he's gained some kind of a degenerative condition where he's slowly kind of losing his hearing, or maybe he loses hearing in one ear or something like that. And then at that point, now he truly gets how things were from her perspective. But in the way that they actually tried to paint it, I don't know, maybe a coma was probably the better way to go about it.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of the scene as that way, like his penance, but it still feels like he could face the consequences of his actions and what he did, like basically by isolating himself again. So it doesn't feel like he needed an additional punishment because he's already like faced so much for everything he's done.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. It's at this point he's been punished. It's more just the noble attempt to save somebody.
That's not what I mean. I agree with you. He is not being punished anymore, except by himself. This is a penance to himself. And I appreciate that it's just like, oh God, please don't let this happen. But in all honesty, up until this point, he was still punishing himself. So this was does that make sense? This was a penance to himself as a character. He didn't feel like he had redeemed himself.
Okay. Yeah, that does make more sense. Like it's like he hasn't done enough and he has to do something, and like he's redeeming himself to himself.
Yeah. And I feel also like his old friends kind of redeemed themselves. If you guys notice, they pull him out the river. The blonde dude and the black haired dude. They're just little his old friends. They pull him out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was also, they come back and they just
wasn't Naoka with them too?
No, it was just them, because you see them. They're standing next to each other. They're soaked water, and you just see the sirens in the background.
Did he fall into a river though?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he fell.
Okay. Well, I knew he fell. I thought it was like into the bushes or something. I did not think it was a river.
Oh, it was a river. Because he hit his head.
No, it was the same river, wasn't it? Because then they showed like the koi fish. It almost looked like the koi fish was sucking up his blood. I thought.
Oh, how did he get to?
This film had a really interesting theming concept with that koi fish, and making sure everybody knew that this is why this is the same place that this is happening, because they always had to have that koi fish come out of nowhere.
So the river like goes right up to Shoko's apartment?
It's possible.
Yeah,
they don't make it explicit like what river it is.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, because I did not know that there was a river like you could get to from her balcony.
If anything, I actually got the feeling that it was probably closer to Shoko than Shoya, because they'd show occasionally like he'd have to ride his bike to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do see him walk a pretty good distance to get to that bridge where he intends to jump himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Naoka, she is an interesting character in this film. She plays a much more major role in this. The fallout from this whole thing. We see her lock out Shoko from seeing Shoya, and as well we see a pretty a fight between a teenager and a grown woman. What do you guys think about the stuff that came after this scene?
To be honest, I'm kind of this was the one thing about the elementary school scenes that kind of didn't make sense to me. I don't know if this is going to be something that we discuss later, but when Shoya and Shoko have a knockdown drag out fight over their differences, and it felt awkward, and after I watched the movie, I kind of get now why it felt awkward to me. It almost felt like it should have been Naoka that Shoko was fighting, because Naoka is the one that had, I want to say, legit hatred for her, whereas Shoya just had straight up resentment.
Well, I think that may go back to her feelings for Shoya. She wants to be friends with this guy so much, and it's just frustrating because he's not letting her through.
No, he actually treats her as almost like a bad influence in a way.
Yep.
And doesn't he say to Naoko, she says like, hate me, don't you? And he's like, yeah, probably.
Oh yeah, okay. I remember.
You remember that? It's at the theme park.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because that's after like she tries introducing to like that old friend that they had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then
in fact, one of the things I like at the end of the film is that you've seen a lot of these characters go through some changes. Naoka doesn't really change that much. She still has her viewpoints. She still has her misgivings towards Shoko. She still has a lot of that stuff, but she's at least gotten the wall down, and she's at least willing to try. Whereas most of the movie, she's like, no, I'm not going to try to learn sign language. I'm not I don't even know if I want to write in her notebook. I don't like what she's done to all of our friendships, et cetera, et cetera. They go into explaining very harshly the wall she has when it comes to Shoko.
Yeah, and Naoko, it felt like there are times where like they kept having her be that way, just like add more drama to the story. And I see what they're trying to like represent with her, like a desire to like not see herself as bad or needing to change, or seeing like everyone else is just as bad as you and all that. So like thematically it works, but as a character, it just felt like it was too much at times.
I think it was too little, because in the manga there is a lot more development for Naoka.
I was kind of wondering about that. It felt like it was a little disjointed.
Yes, and I guess it's time to just go ahead and reveal that the manga for A Silent Voice has a lot more than what's in the movie. In fact, it has the ending to the series. This is not the ending. This film.
No.
I wouldn't think so. It does sound like it's a fairly lengthy manga, so I was pretty surprised when I heard that it was going to be a movie. Just because it's like, I feel like most of the time when you hear of manga being adapted to anime, like, I don't know, 9 out of 10 times it's usually a TV series. But
let me clarify this really quick. The last scene that we get in the movie is not the last scene of the manga.
It is
no, it's
There's
not.
Much more chapters after that.
Because the manga is actually, it's not too long actually. It's only 62 chapters. It goes on for a
Only
little
62, huh?
Oh, I've read manga way longer than 62.
I mean, I'm making fun of you, but for crying out loud, there's like 1,000 issues of Spider-Man, so I'm not one to talk.
Well,
The
yeah,
chapters
so
are really short for the manga.
It's just different for me. I just read it. I read stuff that has like hundreds of chapters.
Sure.
But I
it
see
is
where you come from.
interesting that the length, though, like a lot of anime tend to adapt around like 2 chapters per episode of anime. So if they did that with Silent Voice, then you would have like a 30-episode anime for that adaptation.
Probably, yeah.
And the anime is around like 6 episodes long, so they like cut out 3/4 of it, assuming that they adapt it at the same rate as like other shows.
I don't know if 30 even would do it. Like this really felt like Fruits Basket levels of disjointed. Because even I kind of looked at the last scene in the movie and I'm like, that's it? Really? That's it?
Yeah.
And it feels like we're missing a lot of resolution here.
It seemed like
fine to me because it's the end of Shoya's major arc here. It's like,
yeah, and that makes more sense to me, Shadow. Like if it's just following, it's kind of like the interpretation of the Lord of the Rings films, where they had to do it in a way that just followed Frodo. And so at that point, yeah, it makes more sense if it was just to follow Shoya.
Yeah, and it's like it'd be like Fruits Basket, and they cut out everything except for the scenes focusing like on Toru, Kyo, and Yuki, and like cut out everything else that did not involve them directly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, from what I remember, because I don't think because in the manga, when the last scene happens, that's in the last scene of the film, the manga doesn't go on for too long after that. It just wraps some more things up. It adds some more stuff. But it doesn't go on for too much longer. Like, I'm sure if you guys wanted to, you could, like, find the chapter where the anime ended off and just finish it really quick. So
Doesn't Crunchyroll offer manga, Alex? Sorry, Shadow.
It's okay. You can call me whatever you like. But
I think it's for Shadow then.
Crunchyroll, I think they do have some manga, and they have some.
Yeah, don't they have like a Comixology kind of thing where you can read manga off of it?
Yeah, I don't know if they have
think
this manga though.
I think it requires Java though, so I don't know if you'd want to even bother with that.
It just means I can't read it on my phone.
No, I was going to borrow my brother's computer for it then.
I could show you a place after the podcast to tell you where to watch it.
Okay.
But I just don't want to say it because
I see.
Yeah, I don't think they have the manga on Crunchyroll, so it is available in bookstores though.
Yeah, you could buy like on Amazon the whole series for actually not too much money.
The one thing I also just kind of getting back to this, the one thing I did like about Naoka, and I don't know if this is the same as the manga, I'm guessing it is I actually found it refreshing that usually in anime, the person that is hard-headed, for lack of a better term, is usually male. And usually for specific reasons. I actually liked that in this film, Naoka, the girl, was the one who was hard-headed and unwilling to change and had tons of walls in this situation. It was just, it's a weird deal, but that's refreshing to me because that's an interesting out-of-the-box thinking to me.
I would say that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and we haven't really talked about this, but one of the characters that really impressed me both times I watched it was Yuzu.
Yeah, she's great.
She's awesome.
Yeah. I was confused at first because when I first introduced her, I was like, okay, that looks like a female character. But then she like introduced herself as Joko's boyfriend. I was like, wait, really? That's a guy?
I was like, that's not
in that outfit, girly.
Yeah,
I was just like,
I was like, I felt like, okay, tomboy I could believe, but no, it's actually a girl.
I might have had the same kind of confusion you had, Rising. So I can't exactly remember how I took to Yuzuru for something like. But I'm used to like a lot of Bishonen like style manga and anime, so it's like I can kind of go either. So I usually just wait till somebody confirms it one way or the other.
Yeah.
Like I looked at her and went, because here's the thing, like not every anime stereotype is followed, but when I saw like all the tight clothing and such, I'm just like, there's a good and given like how the hair looks, it's bouncy. I like most of the guys' hairs, unless they have like what's his name from MHA, Mineta, where they have like bouncy hair. And I get it, part of his quirk. But that's usually when they have the bouncy hair. And I looked at her and went, no, that's a girl. That's absolutely a girl. And if they're going to try and paint a different way, I'm going to hate this movie more.
I was just like, that's not her boyfriend. No. That was just me. That's not her boyfriend.
If that's her boyfriend, then we're stepping into really creepy territory here.
Showtime time.
Turns out Shoko
pedophile.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, let's be a little fair. Sometimes characters are older than they look.
1,000-year-old
yes, but it's not always portrayed very well.
Oh.
All I'm gonna say is, if the FBI is watching, I didn't know her age. I promise. So
hey, Chris Hansen, we're all in the clear here, people.
I mean, he steals all the lollies in my server.
Hey, that's not true.
What do you mean? It's not true.
That's my alter ego, Umi Alter.
Sure.
Speaking of that one blonde girl in the movie.
Oh yeah. She was-
felt okay. She does not fit the lolly shtick, but for me, like I can't remember what her name was, but she was just like every aside from looking really, 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 really young, she just felt like every prim and proper lolly shtick. Really shiny hair, really embracing personality.
Name is Miki.
Miku, sorry.
Miki.
The first thought that I had was
Miki
and Alex is gonna need to help me. What's her name from Monica? That dies early.
Mommy.
Yeah, that's the feeling I was getting minus the huge breasts.
Miki's also kind of interesting. I mean, we don't see a lot from her, but
no,
I mean, she's not really a good person either. She just tries to deny all the stuff that she does.
I would actually go a step further and say none of them are. They all have some inherent character flaw that they, in some cases, they overcome it throughout the film, and then there are others you get no resolution at all. Like you brought up the former friends of Shoya, and I feel like there was no resolution. I was actually kind of surprised when I saw them saving him, because they literally had been so bitter to him in previous scenes. I think they would have let him drown.
I can see where you're coming from in that.
Yeah.
I just a character that was like really weird. It didn't like put down the film for me, but it was just kind of random. Like her friend who's a boy, not her boyfriend, Toshi.
Satoshi, yeah.
He was just kind of there.
No, yeah, I would actually say like that's the one time where you didn't, but everybody in their little friends group, they all had issues that they were working out with it, and so it was cool to have Satoshi and Nagatsuka, I think is his name, and have them be like the outsiders looking in and seeing the problem through a clearer perspective.
Yo, man, just gotta like chill out a little bit, you know? You gotta like catch them waves, man. You gotta surf them. You gotta.
I mean,
and then,
he does have that.
And then you gotta skank it down afterwards.
You have the passiveness of Satoshi, and then you have the "you will not hurt my senpai" from Nagatsuka.
Yeah.
So I guess it's at this. I guess we talked about it a minute, but what do you guys think about the whole ending and how do you do you think that the anime earned this ending, I guess, than to end complete?
Yeah, I think it's a nice way to end on it, because again, for this, even though the manga probably does go on a little further, I think it's a nice kind of bookend, or I don't even know if that's the right term, but it's just a nice way to kind of conclude this movie's story here, because the movie's story is all about Shoya and of course Shoko. It's all about them coming to terms with their past, with their present, and what their future is together. And for Shoya, that's kind of overcoming the guilt of his past. And you watch the X's all peel away, because he's going to become much more sociable now. He's going to start becoming among his peers.
He's gonna start catching those waves.
Yeah, with Toshi, yeah, they're gonna go surfing.
Yeah,
Given the premise that Alex has given, it makes sense. From my personal perspective, no. And it's only because there was such emphasis put on not just Shoya. I would actually dare say that this film had a duality kind of main character between Shoko and Shoya. And so at that point, only going into one of them doesn't feel like a true resolution to me. Also, the other thing that bugs the heck out of me is the emphasis on the little group. And so at that point, I would be much more intrigued by having a resolution with that group aesthetic as well as Shoya and Shoko. So like given from where Shadow Blazer is going from, yes, it is resolved well. And for me as a personal viewer, no. Just because I want those resolutions.
And I feel like knowing that there's more in the manga makes me want to go read the manga to like get the full ending. Though if this is like there was no manga, this was the anime, I still walk away satisfied with it. Because I think it wrapped up enough that there's definitely a lot of loose ends that I felt like the anime never explored too much, like with the side characters.
See, I'm just that much more convinced I need to read the manga, because at that point, like, I'm not a big comic or manga reader anymore, but there were too many loose ends left for me that I need to see at least what level of closure the manga gives.
Yeah, I think the manga would definitely be interesting to read after this to like see what else is fleshed out and like try to understand the decisions they made to compress a 60-chapter manga into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Ben, do you mind if I bring up one scene really quick or no?
Totally fine with me. Bring up whatever you guys want to bring up.
It's one of my favorite scenes. It didn't go on for too long, but I think it's just a really fun scene in general. What did you guys think of when Shoya and Shoko go on a date? They're on the train and they go to that like museum place, and then they're on the grass.
Is that a date?
And yeah, they hung out. I'd call it a date.
Together, it's a date.
Yeah, I call it a date.
I'd say that's my kind of date, not a date that I'm used to seeing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I feel
I've seen it with-
When you were dating your wife, those were the kinds of dates you took her
Yeah,
on.
but
they were very simple.
the reason I say that is I was perceived, and I still am by a lot of my friends, as a boring dater. And so at that point, they were surprised that your sister stuck with me as long as she did.
I thought that date was great. Honestly, the place they were in was really cool, and then the grass that they were sitting on with the sliding edge on it, and the sunset. I thought that was really cool. It was just really sweet.
I overall like what they did with it. It's just like it needed to be as quiet as it was, and it almost felt like I don't know if I want to call it a first date. I want to actually call it that awkward date before the first date, when you have like a really good friendship with a girl, but you really want to take it to that next step, and you don't know if she's going to be okay with it. That's how it felt. It felt like everybody was being awkward, and so at that point, I was screaming at the screen, "Just kiss already!"
Yeah.
Just have babies. Just do it. Get over with. That's gonna happen.
Smash.
Just like
Skip to.
Not
an
that first
awkward
date.
kiss is a lot easier to convey that there's chemistry than what they did there. It makes me sit there and go, I get what you're trying to do to me, but just have some kind of payoff.
It's a date for people who don't know how to date.
So,
Yeah.
Well,
Final
I don't have to
thoughts
worry about that
overall.
shit anymore.
on a silent voice.
We're not going
What'd
to
you
talk
guys
about the dub.
Well,
Yeah.
and that will be a part of that, actually, because I do have some questions for you guys. What did you guys think about the English dub?
I thought it was really good. I thought it was really also a nice touch that they found a real deaf actress to go play Shoko. You know, not something they had to do, considering voice acting is really challenging and difficult, especially when you're dubbing and you have to take the effort to match the lip flaps properly. But the fact that they could pull that off so well, it turned out excellent.
Yeah, I like the dub, though. I have one nitpick about it, and that's that when I was watching the dub, they did not have subtitles for like all the text on screen, or at least that's
Didn't.
when I watched
Yeah.
it.
No,
I
when
can
I watched
understand,
it,
though.
like it was laggy. Like I would literally be getting subtitles from 2 scenes ago while I was watching. I had to turn it
Really?
off.
Was
But
it on
I can,
Netflix that you
I
watched
can
it?
understand, though. It's like... it's
No,
already
I
different-
watched it via Prime.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
See, I can understand, though. I would have
Right.
liked that, too, but at the same time, I can understand from both a practicality and a story point is... Because I don't imagine the Japanese has subtitles for sign language either, but...
Not the sign language, the text on screen.
Yeah, like
the
on
text
the
on
phone,
screen,
like the
okay.
phone, like when they were texting each other, like it
Yeah,
wouldn't show
like
up.
they had something on the board, like when the character said written, is like, if a Japanese person should know what it means, they should read it, but because I don't know Japanese, it's like I don't know what they're saying unless they actually like speak to it.
Well, it was weird because the first time I watched it, because I've seen the film 3 times, the time I watched it, it didn't have the subtitles for the dub. Then, like the second time and the third time I watched it because it's on Netflix. They
Uh-huh.
added those subtitles.
Okay, so yeah,
It might depend on the release, yeah. I need to go back into my Blu-ray and see if it does it there. I don't remember one way or the other from the original theatrical release.
A cool thing about the Blu-rays, if you have any of them, is that they have special audio for the hearing impaired.
Oh, really? Oh,
That would be
that's great.
subtitles then.
No. They have, it's like a certain, it's not subtitles. It's like its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they make the voices different, so hearing impaired can like hear it better or something.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that would be.
Because
Okay.
usually,
Yeah, I know what you're
now.
talking about. I can't explain it either, but
I'm
I did not know that they did that for the Blu-ray.
it's
Oh,
just
same
usually
here.
if you're making something accessible to hearing impaired, you just put on subtitles or closed captioning. When somebody's deaf, when somebody's blind, then you will have a extra audio track that describes the action.
Yeah, you can have that, but then they also have oh shit! I don't know
it's
what
some
the
sort of
practice is called, but it actually is softer audio to accommodate better to things like hearing aids and especially like internal, or I can't remember what they're called. One of my friend's daughters has it, but it's like an internal hearing aid.
Okay.
So yeah, it's stuff that accommodates to those, I believe.
Did you guys know that in the scene where Shoya finally wakes up and he goes to the bridge where Shoko is? Did you know that the tears that Shoko cries are actually pink?
I saw this in your video. I
Yeah.
didn't even notice it the first time.
Did as well.
You'll notice it every time now. Those tears
Yeah.
are pink, and that's just because
Are we talking about the night where they see each other? Or?
after he
I
wakes up
noticed
from the
that.
coma. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't notice that, and I watch your video, so apparently I don't pay attention to either.
Well, they
Yeah.
changed that because the clear tears that they usually would do just didn't. They didn't like it, so they changed it to pink.
It contrasts well with her hair, so
I liked it better just because it kind of re-emphasized the cost that it took to make this scene. Because already, like, I want to say that Shoko had been going on her, for lack of a better term, apology tour, and she was wrecked from that. And he was literally getting up from a coma. So at that point, it just looked to me like more of a physical cost that his body was going through because he ran out as hard as he did.
Something I wonder about that scene is like, how
I
did he?
just thought he was like it wasn't that it was full on blood, but I thought like because he was so dehydrated that maybe some of his blood was just getting mixed into his tears.
Oh. Well, it was Shoko who was crying the pink tears, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Shoya that was. Okay, my bad.
Well, that scene bothered me a little bit because, like, how did he get out of the hospital taking all those monitors off him without anyone noticing or stopping him?
Yeah, right.
It's not that unreasonable. The hospitals
Like,
at night aren't exactly fully staffed, so
I still feel like they'd have something that would like monitor if like a patient is dying.
No,
their heart
I'm not
stopped.
buying that because there's still an alert that would go off at the nurse's station.
Yeah, they said like some of these people's like, we don't have a heart rate on this patient. Someone should go check that.
Yeah,
patient
I'm pretty
has
sure if
disappeared.
we brought in my wife, she would tell us, yeah, the nurse's station would know about 5 minutes after while he was in the elevator that he would be out there and they would
but
be
he
calling
took the
security.
stairs and ran out the door. Okay, he managed to alert the nurse.
it's gotta have a little leeway with it. But yeah,
No, Alex, I'll buy a lot of things, but Solid Snake Shoya is not.
Solid Snake
Especially when he
Shoya.
got out of the hospital. Like
He
that.
had a cardboard box that day.
Solid
Listen,
Shoya.
yeah, he had a
He
PS4
gave all the
cardboard box
security
on his
guards a
head.
porno mag.
Yeah, exactly.
Threw a rock across the room.
Oh my god.
Distracted.
I want to see the video how a silent voice should have ended, which is right in the middle of this emotional scene. Just a bunch of security guards tackle him.
Before the
Yeah.
ambulances pull up.
There he is,
Arrest him.
get him!
Okay,
Right there,
this is
criminal
my notes.
scum.
What would make that even better as if they were like inching in for their first kiss? Then it's like, there he is, get him! And they both
That's
get
another idea.
dogpiled.
There's another idea. Shoya just had another patient put on the heart monitor for him.
Yeah.
It's like, here,
Just-
what is this for 5 minutes? I gotta go see my girlfriend.
He somehow conned Yuzu into wearing his heart monitor.
Yep.
No,
And how
Naoko
did
was
he even
there.
know, like, where to
Actually,
go, too?
no. It should have been Yuzuru's idea because she's like, "Go get her, you dummy!" And then she starts putting on all the medical stuff. Like, "Don't get her, dummy!"
The nurse comes
That would
in.
be perfect.
You look a little
This
bit
just reminds
different.
me of Weathering with You.
Smaller.
There's a scene very much like this where they like kind of fool the police. It's like,
like, oh
this kid's
gosh,
brought in
so
to like be
dehydrated,
interrogated by the
That's
police, and
great.
one just poses as him for a while so he can go find his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Oh man, just imagine. Oh, that if they like changed clothes and everything. So he's got like unreleased well kids clothes.
Okay, that would have been great. Actually, having him come out and use it as like winter attire.
Oh my
no.
god.
He ends up wearing the shoes that he gave her.
His
that?
little
Like,
his shoes
remember
that he
in,
wears
like-
a kid.
Yeah, the shoes that he gave to Yuzu, and like he has to wear them now so he can go outside and his feet will.
Those would like fit his his 2 toes, and like that would be it.
Ignore that fact. They stretch because they're out in the rain.
And then just out of nowhere, Shoko's mom just decks him.
Just decks him.
Decks him.
Sure, why not?
Well, we already
So-
know she got a pretty fierce slap. So
No,
Yeah.
she slaps him earlier, like right across the face. Bam.
I'm just
I
saying.
mean, she hits her face and half the city hears it. So
I'm just saying. I'm single. Oh,
All right,
she's perfect.
all right. We know you're desperate. Chill out.
So, where can all the people watching this podcast find you?
well, can I actually just kind of go into my thoughts really quick before we wrap up? Because
Yeah, no
like
problem.
I don't want to leave people thinking that I'm just an asshole. I'm glad. Like here's the thing. I don't have necessarily an issue with a silent voice. It's very well animated. It's very well dubbed. It's very well directed. And everything is done with purpose. This is kind of one of the issues that I usually have, where if people can't tell, like me and Alex have worked together quite a bit, and a lot of things that he recommends to me, I tend to turn down because I'm like, I can watch some slice of life stuff and be able to enjoy it, but one of the things I don't like about the genre is that it tries to paint being in high school and in middle school in a positive light. And to me, that's too cutesy and sugary because in a lot of cases, I don't have that experience. I'm pretty sure Alex does, like given our conversations. I think he had a better experience than I did. And that's where a lot of my issues come from this movie, is I've literally been in a position that both Shoya and Shoko have been in. And the reason that I don't like it is because I've felt those emotions, and I felt what it feels like to be told it's okay, things are going to be okay, you're special, and then having the entire classroom think that you're retarded. And so at that point, like, it's not that I hate this film. This film is very well done. But to me, it just hit all of the wrong notes and brought back a lot of shit that I would just rather forget. I've had those kinds of friends. I've had those kinds of situations. And so I relate a lot to this movie. And I do think that for what it did, I want more resolution for it. But I mean, I've been in Shoya's shoes where I've kind of learned that socializing is a difficult task. And once you figure it out, and once it's not so scary, you have that epiphany that brings you to utter joy, that you don't ever have to, this is something that you don't have to worry about anymore. And I've also had Shoko's kind of perspective, where because I was so different than everybody else, that I absolutely hated myself and wished that I wasn't that way. And I never got to the point that they did, where it was suicide, but there are definitely a lot of times where I got damn close to being as low as they were. And so in a lot of cases, like, don't take this as just utter hatred. Alex likes to make the joke that I just hate everything, and that I should go and go bowling with the I Hate Everything channel. I like this film, but I don't like what it makes me feel, if that makes sense. It's a good film. I'm not gonna knock it.
Well,
I can definitely see how this would like impact different people in different ways.
Yeah.
And like, I think the power of it is that a lot of people can relate to it. But as you say, I could definitely see that how much it relates to you. It makes you feel things you don't want to feel, so you don't enjoy it.
No, like a lot of that stuff, like I found myself relating to Naoka, because I mean, kids are asshats. I like, let's just be honest. We all were when we were kids. We all tried to be as nice as we possibly could, but we were all hard-headed, and we all had this one interpretation of the world. And I can say that from the rose-tinted glasses of being 30 plus years old, but around that time, like that's what you know. And so I can say that I empathize with them, but for me, it's just it put me right back in those shoes, and it was hard to actually watch it without wanting to throw stuff at the screen, because it's things I didn't want to look back into.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes like the first half hour or so like so hard for me to get through. The first time I watched it, I nearly dropped it half an hour. I was like, I don't like any of these characters of the story or anything.
Yeah.
And even watching it the second time I did it, I was like, okay, have to slug through this half hour again. I know I'll probably like it later on, which I do like it, but that first half hour is just very hard to get through.
Yeah. And for me, it didn't even end at the first half hour, because even in high school, a lot of these people still had the same issues that they were dealing with in elementary school, which makes sense to me, because in a lot of cases through that process of growing up, you don't really resolve any of that stuff until probably your 20s. And it's not that you resolve it, it's that you come to peace with it.
Yeah, it's like you become more aware of like who you are, what you've done, and like you accept it. There's one line that I see if I can find it, but it was like them saying like you don't have to you have to accept the good and the bad within you.
And again, I want to reemphasize here is like Alex isn't wrong for the way that he feels about it. That's what he took away from it, given what happened when he grew up. I took what I took from it because that's how I grew up, and that's one of the brilliant aspects of this movie, is that it can speak to so many people, and it can speak on their level.
For me, I could say I relate to some of it as well, just not to the point where as it brought back stuff I didn't want to remember, because it happened to me. Like I'm like how everybody's different. Everybody deals with stuff differently.
Yeah.
Like for me, like I was really good at getting over it when people would do stuff to me or just bother me. Like I just had the situations, but I was never like personally like affected by it.
Yeah.
There was a one time where I had like moved schools, but that's like, but that I can barely remember, and I just brushed it off now. Like, yeah, I was way younger, so that's understandable.
And the way that I just kind of took it was, I've kind of explained this when me and Alex have done things before, is that I don't have good memories of school. All my good memories, like, because everybody bounces back going, well, you didn't have friends, you didn't. No, but a lot of my good memories happened after school or on those weekends that we didn't have to go to school. And so, like, for me, associating school is basically associating hatred, and all those loving memories are nowhere near associated with school. And so at that point, that's where I can at least say, well, okay, that's where I get it. I've had those moments. I just haven't had them in the environment that they do. And I get it from also the Japanese context. This is an endearing time for a lot of them. I just, it's one of those things where I just don't share it with them. That's not good or bad. It's just the way it went. That's the way it turned out.
I feel like this is in many ways is like a response to the Japanese culture too, that being Americans, we can definitely relate to it. But I feel like there is a disconnect between the two different cultures here.
Yeah.
I would say there's a lot of similarities there too, because unfortunately, like how we're outsiders handled in either environment, they're handled roughly the exact same way. It doesn't matter if you're blind, deaf, actually have conditions like autism or anything like that. It's unfortunately when you're a kid, you basically have the mindset of like a caveman. If it's different, you therefore fear it. Hence why I related to things like comics like the X-Men back in the day, is because I did feel that way in a lot of those cases and got bullied for it and persecuted for it. And so at that point, like all you want is for people to be able to see that you're just different. And so at that point, like I can relate to Shoko. She feels different the entire time, and there's nothing she can do about it. And then eventually Shoya begins to learn that and put himself in her shoes and actually empathized with her.
Yeah, and there's one other character here that really stood out, and I forgot his name, but he was the guy who originally befriended Shoya.
Nagatsuka.
Yeah, Nagatsuka. And what I liked
Yeah.
about him is that a lot of times for people, they need like this friend who like doesn't like fully respect boundaries, just like go after them, make friends with them, whether they want it or not. And that can just like help pull them out of their loneliness and then help them to like get out of what they're going through.
Nagatsuka is an interesting character in this aspect because if we're going into the concept of theming, he represents something that a lot of kids in elementary to high school don't ever deal with aside from parental perspective, and that is unconditional love. That's how I viewed Nagatsuka. He was basically, I love you, or I love, not in that way, people, but I love you unconditionally. I love you for who you are. The cards are out on the table. I see you with all your flaws, and I still don't hate you.
I
Yeah,
love you
and
in
that's
that
just
way,
like-
Drac.
What was that?
I love you in that way.
She doesn't agree with me that way.
Oh, sorry. I'll Mac with you later.
My pet is great.
Yeah, so we need more people like that in the world.
Exactly. We
We
need more
need
people
it.
like Shoko in the world. Who's-
Yes, that too. And we do also need more people like Toru.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's funny
people like
because I just barely saw like the first 3 episodes of the new Fruits Basket, and I'm just like, wow, they actually found a way to make Toru even more in her personal walls than they ever could.
Yes.
Oh,
Everyone should be more like Toru.
should.
So
But anyway, yeah, I've said my piece on that one. So, and I know that we're probably a little bit over for you, man.
a little bit over for you.
Oh,
Sorry, I like this all became a Dr. Phil episode. I feel like.
I didn't want to keep you long because I know you have a whole bunch of stuff going on. But I guess let's get to that part in the show where we wrap up. Odyssey, you can just go first.
they can't.
Well, we've hit the end of the show. Kind of a long one, but that's fine. Odyssey, where can they find you?
You can find me at well, where can you find me? I haven't even put any videos out. Let's just say you can find me at Odyssey_2112, and you can find me on Twitter. Even though I only have 2 so far.
Yes, they're the 2 best tweets I've ever seen.
Yes, send
No,
him to links of Neil Peart doing drum solos.
sure then.
Yes,
Hey,
that will be what
everybody at one point in their lives needs a good drum solo.
Exactly, I agree.
I'll be there.
All right, and I guess I'm next. So if you guys want to be able to find me, the best way to be able to do so on YouTube is search for Drac, just DRAK on there, and you will be able to get to my channel. Most of the stuff I do is gaming content, but I'm a geek of all trades, so I will basically do a video on anime if I want to, TV, anything basically. I also do live streams. In fact, I'll actually be getting ready to stream right after this podcast, so you guys can join me playing some World of Final Fantasy, and also be able to ask all of these horrible questions of my wife, because she will actually be there, and she will be able to confirm some of the stuff that we've talked about, including we can make fun of the Shadow Blazer as much as we want. And then also you can follow me on Twitter at Drac2326 and be able to ask me about my content, about the stuff that I talked about, or you can even tell me that you hated my personal opinion of a silent voice. That's okay. It's a justified opinion.
I'm going to get tweeted that, by the way.
Of course you are. All right, I'll die tonight just for you, Rising Sun.
Yes, I highly recommend Drax gaming streams. It's so much fun to watch him die to things in Dark Souls or Doom or whatever other games he's playing.
I agree.
Haven't watched it.
Especially when it comes out of nowhere, or and my wife Andrea breaks me. Like, she just says something that I totally didn't expect, and it breaks me, and therefore I die because of it.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes, I always seem to like as soon as I watch his stream, like when I was like, "Well, Drac died. Okay, time to go do something else."
Yeah, exactly. Your life is fulfilled that night.
Yes, now I can go watch anime with C.
Speaking of Rising, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me sending on Discord, where I send C random pictures from Twin Tails and confuse him. They can find me on YouTube, where I try to act smart when I talk about anime, my gaming channel, where I play games sometimes. They can find me on Twitter, where I post stuff and things, or they can find me in my kitchen, where I yell at my plumbing for backing up during the middle of a podcast.
Shadow, where are you at?
I'm on YouTube and I make anime content occasionally. That's what it feels like these days. But yeah, Shadow Blazer 3000 is my channel on YouTube, and anime content is what I produce.
All right, and that is the end of the first episode of the Bento KyoAni podcast. I forget names for things. It's fine. Tune in next week when we talked about Violet Evergarden. It's going to be amazing. We're going to talk about people that look like Seiba-san. Going to be great. Yeah. So, thanks for watching.
For all the people who put the hate in the comments, love you too.
I'll be one of them, don't worry.
Oh.
So thanks everybody for watching.
A lot of people will be like, fuck that Drat guy. I like this movie. I was like, love you too, sweetheart.
Good night.
So thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.